The neighborhood of Oak Ridge looked like the kind of place people moved to when they wanted peace and quiet. Long rows of identical houses lined the streets, each with trimmed lawns, quiet sidewalks, and tall trees that blocked most of the outside noise from the nearby highway. During the day, it felt completely normal. Kids rode their bikes in slow circles at the end of the cul-de-sac. Neighbors walked their dogs after dinner, and people waved politely when they passed each other. But late at night, the entire neighborhood felt different. After midnight, the streets became completely silent, and the only light came from scattered porch lamps and the occasional passing car. Daniel had moved into Oak Ridge only 2 months earlier. He worked remotely as a graphic designer and had chosen the neighborhood because it was affordable and calm. His house sat near the end of a quiet cul-de-sac where traffic almost never passed through. For the first few weeks, everything felt perfectly normal. Then one night, around 1:30 in the morning, Daniel noticed something strange. He had stayed up late finishing a project when he walked into the kitchen to get a glass of water. As he passed the front window, he saw a car parked across the street. At first, that didn't seem unusual, but the longer he looked, the stranger it felt. The car wasn't parked in front of anyone's house. It was just sitting directly across from his driveway. The headlights were off and the engine wasn't running. Inside the driver's seat, he could barely make out the silhouette of someone sitting completely still. Daniel assumed it might be someone waiting for a friend nearby, so he didn't think much about it and eventually went to bed. The car was gone the next morning. 2 nights later, it happened again. This time, Daniel noticed it a little after 2 in the morning while he was watching television in the living room. The same car was parked in the exact same spot. Once again, someone was sitting in the driver's seat. They weren't moving or looking at a phone. They were simply facing his house. Daniel stood behind the curtain watching the vehicle for nearly a minute. Eventually, he stepped outside onto the porch to get a better look. The cold night air was still and quiet. The moment Daniel walked down the front steps, the car's engine suddenly started. The headlights remained off as the car slowly rolled forward and turned down the road before disappearing into the darkness. That was the moment Daniel started feeling uneasy. Over the next week, the car returned several more times. Not every night, but often enough that Daniel began expecting it. Sometimes it appeared around midnight, other nights closer to 3 in the morning. Every time it parked in the exact same place across from his house, and every time the driver stayed inside, watching. One night, Daniel turned off all the lights in the house and carefully peeked through the curtain. The car was there again. This time he could see the driver more clearly under the dim glow of a distant streetlight. The person appeared to be wearing a dark hooded sweatshirt. Their face remained completely hidden in shadow. What bothered Daniel most was that the person wasn't doing anything. They weren't on their phone or adjusting the mirrors. They were just staring directly toward the house. After several nights of this, Daniel finally called the non-emergency police line. An officer came by the next evening and listened to his explanation. Unfortunately, there wasn't much they could do unless the person trespassed or caused trouble. The officer suggested Daniel keep his doors locked and call again if anything escalated. For a few nights, the car didn't appear. Daniel started thinking the situation might have resolved itself. Then one night, around 2:30 in the morning, he woke up suddenly. At first, he didn't know why. The house was completely quiet. Then he heard something faint outside. Footsteps. Daniel walked slowly to the front window and pulled the curtain back slightly. His stomach dropped. The car wasn't across the street this time. It was parked directly in his driveway. The driver's door was open. Daniel scanned the yard but didn't see anyone. Then he noticed something else. The small wooden gate leading to his backyard was slowly swinging back and forth in the wind, as if someone had just passed through it moments earlier. Daniel immediately locked every door and called the police. Officers arrived about 10 minutes later and searched the entire property with flashlights. They didn't find anyone hiding in the yard or nearby streets. The car was gone by the time they arrived. After that night, the strange visits stopped completely. Daniel never saw the car again. But a month later, a neighbor down the street shared something unsettling. Their security camera had captured someone walking quietly through several backyards in the neighborhood late at night. The figure wore a hooded sweatshirt, and at one point, the person stopped behind Daniel's house and stood there for almost 5 minutes, staring toward the windows, before walking away into the darkness. Story 2. The Man at the Edge of the Woods. Carla had lived in Oak Ridge for nearly 10 years and had always considered it a safe and quiet neighborhood. Her house sat near the edge of the community, where the last row of homes backed up against a thick forest. During the daytime, the woods looked peaceful. Sunlight filtered through tall trees, and a small walking trail ran between them where people occasionally jogged or walked their dogs. But at night, the forest became completely black, and the trail disappeared into darkness just a few feet beyond the tree line. One evening in late October, Carla was standing in her kitchen washing dishes when she happened to glance through the window facing her backyard. At first, she thought she was imagining things. Near the edge of the woods, partially hidden between the trees, someone was standing there. The figure looked like a man. He wasn't walking or moving. He was simply standing still in the shadows, facing the houses. Carla assumed it might be someone using the trail who had stopped for a moment, so she finished her dishes and closed the curtains. The next night, around the same time, she noticed him again. The man stood in nearly the exact same spot near the trees. Once again, he wasn't moving. Something about the stillness made Carla uneasy. She stepped outside onto her back porch and called out, asking if he needed help. The man didn't respond. For several seconds, he remained perfectly still. Then he slowly turned and walked deeper into the woods until the darkness swallowed him completely. Carla tried convincing herself it was nothing, but the following night he returned. This time he stood closer to her property, near the back fence. The distance between him and the house was maybe 30 feet. Carla immediately called the police. Officers searched the trail and nearby woods with flashlights, but didn't find anyone. For a few days, everything returned to normal. Carla began thinking the man had simply been someone passing through the area. Then one evening, she returned home from work and noticed something disturbing in the dirt behind her house. Footprints. They circled the entire backyard multiple times. Whoever had left them had walked around the house repeatedly during the night. After seeing that, Carla installed motion lights and a small security camera facing the backyard. For several nights, nothing appeared on the footage. Then, one night, around 3 in the morning, the motion alert on her phone woke her up. Carla opened the camera feed while still lying in bed. The man was back. He stood near the fence, exactly where she had seen him before, but something about him looked wrong. He wasn't shifting his weight or looking around. He stood perfectly still, like a statue. Carla watched the camera feed for almost 2 minutes. The man didn't move a single inch. Suddenly, he raised one arm slowly and pointed directly toward the camera. Carla felt a wave of fear rush through her body. Seconds later, the video feed suddenly cut to black.
When the police arrived later that night, they searched the woods again, but never found anyone nearby. Carla eventually moved away from Oak Ridge the following year, but neighbors who still live there say they occasionally see someone standing near the tree line late at night, always completely still. Story 3. The Figure in the Street. The third story happened only a year ago and involved a teenager named Lucas who lived on the far end of Oak Ridge, where the houses sat farther apart and the streetlights were fewer. Lucas often stayed up late playing games or scrolling through his phone after everyone else in the house had gone to sleep. One night, around 2:45 in the morning, he happened to glance out his bedroom window, which faced the street.
At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Someone was walking slowly down the middle of the road. The movement itself wasn't unusual, but the way the person walked immediately caught Lucas's attention. They moved in a perfectly straight line without looking to either side. Their pace was slow and steady, almost mechanical. As the figure passed under a streetlight, Lucas leaned closer to the window. It appeared to be a tall person wearing dark clothing. The hood of a jacket covered their head, but something about the face looked strange. From the distance, it looked almost blank, like the light wasn't reflecting off any features at all. Lucas tried convincing himself it was just the angle of the streetlight creating a strange shadow. The figure continued walking until they reached the front of Lucas's house. Then they stopped. Lucas froze when the person slowly lifted their head and looked directly toward his bedroom window. For several seconds, neither of them moved. The figure tilted its head slightly to one side, as if studying him. Lucas felt his heart begin pounding in his chest. He quickly stepped back from the window and pulled the curtain closed. After a few moments, he forced himself to look outside again. The street was empty. The figure had completely disappeared. The next morning, Lucas mentioned the strange encounter to his parents, but they assumed it had just been someone walking through the neighborhood late at night. A few days later, however, another neighbor reported seeing a tall figure walking down the center of the same street around 3 in the morning. The description sounded identical. The person moved slowly, never looking at the houses, until they stopped directly beneath someone's window. No one in Oak Ridge has ever identified who the figure was or where it came from, but several people who live there say that sometimes when they look out their windows late at night, they notice something unsettling. Someone standing perfectly still in the street below. And the moment they realize it's there, the figure is already looking up at them. If you liked this video, subscribe to the channel and share your scary story in the comments. Maybe it'll be featured in the next video.